Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my brand new podcast series. This will be a thing where I just talk about all kinds of crazy, wacky stuff once a week, all year, hopefully. So, in this episode, I've got with me a special guest, my brother, Victor, also known as Iconcolt. Say
hey! Hi. That was a drum roll.
I caught that. Yeah, it built the tension well.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And today we will be talking about the video game The Last of Us. We both played through this game this week. We also watched a friend play through most of it. I had already watched Victor and the friend Brando, was his name, play through a bunch of the game before I even played it. So yeah, we're both extremely well versed in the game at this point, I would say.
Pretty much.
We've now played it a few times and watched other people play it. We get the gist of the damn game.
Yeah.
So, first of all, leading in, tell me about your expectations and everything you thought about the game before it came out. What were you expecting with The Last of Us?
I try not to look at anything because I didn't want to get hyped for it or anything, because it was made by Naughty Dog and I was like, well, it doesn't really look anything like Uncharted from what they were showing on the trailers, but they mostly showed the combat, which they made it look like it was QuickTime events. And so I was really unsure about it, and then they were like, oh yeah, it's story, and so I expected, story-driven game. And then the people at GameStop were freaking the fuck out about it,
right.
And that was a little misleading.
Because the people at GameStop that we talked to before the release had played a pre-release version of it, and they were talking about how it was this... They made it sound like a very survivalist game, it was going to be a little bit more open world. They definitely described it as very difficult, is what they had
The most misleading thing is that he said he was having fun within the first hour.
Right. And Victor totally does not feel that you can have fun within the first hour of the game. So, yeah, so the expectations leading up to it were fairly high. The game has been released to pretty rave reviews across the board. Not quite the insane level that BioShock Infinite was at earlier this year, where everyone was like, this is the greatest fucking game of all time. But it has been up there as one of those games that you're gonna see on a lot of best of 2013 lists at the end of the year, guaranteed. I started watching you play after the intro segment, right when it starts to get real, and when it's also at one of the most difficult parts of the game. And you had been playing on hard mode, and you had to kick it down to normal because it was just beating your ass relentlessly. Yeah. By the way, this will contain spoilers for all of the game. We will be spoiling everything in this because we do analysis, not reviews. God damn it. Yeah. So the structure of this game, basically, it starts off with a long intro. There's a very long. You start off. There's a cold open where you start off as Joel's daughter.
You're playing Heavy Rain for a little bit.
Yeah, it's very Heavy Rain-esque. A lot better than Heavy Rain right off the bat. But yeah, you start off as Joel's daughter. You witness the whole apocalypse basically. This I'd say it's about 15 to 20 minutes that is the cold open, and then after the apocalypse happens, you watch some more cutscenes. You're walking around following your friend Tess and basically getting a gist of the town and everything. It's establishing the setting basically for the early part of the game. It is extremely similar to the intros to Half-Life 2 or BioShock Infinite or pretty much any game that follows the Half-Life 2 formula, where you're going between the story missions and the fighting organically. The Last of Us does not always, because I'd say about a third of the cutscenes is ones where you have control of your character, and then there's the stuff where it's an actual cutscene, unlike those other games that I just mentioned. And I'm so happy for that, because I fucking hate the way cutscenes are done in Half-Life 2 and BioShock Infinite, where you have control of your character, because it's I'm just standing around while people say shit, and I'm usually just fucking lose it. It was so funny when I played Half-Life 2, there's this cutscene where, you meet Alex Vance and this professor or whatever, and you just have to, wait for them for, 15 minutes of talking, and I'm just, running around fucking shooting everything, just being a total fucking spaz. You played that part at the beginning, but there's another one a little bit further in that's longer, and that one, you're just on a small room, and there's nothing to do in there, and I was just spinning around in circles and flipping shit. I hate that. The Last of Us has great cinematic cutscenes. They clearly got a legit director. Yeah. There's all these great camera angles and visual language and stuff. They obviously
visual filters and shit.
It feels like you're watching a very well produced indie movie, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so the whole game really has that indie movie flavor to it. And I like the way that I like the story altogether. The way it's presented, everything works really well. The problem is that the meat of the game is that you're in combat. And when you want to replay the game, you want to play the combat sections.
Yeah.
But trying to play through that early bit again, as Victor can attest to, like the first 2 hours or so is just like a fucking slog when you're playing through it a second time.
Incredibly boring.
Because like it's kind of cool because it establishes the world, but it doesn't really establish enough meaningful stuff that it really feels like it needed that much fucking time.
Yeah.
You know? That was how I felt playing it. Like, I'm following Tess around, and I just kind of was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, with the whole dystopian future or whatever. Not even dystopian. What's the word I'm looking for?
Post-apocalyptic?
Yeah, it's a post-apocalypse police state is how you would describe it. And it's literally exactly the same as Half-Life 2. Like, the very start of the game could not be more similar to the start of Half-Life 2 if it tried. You almost do the same stuff. Like, there's these police guys, they start shooting people, you have to run real quick, you know, take some secret exits out of town and shit. It's exactly the same. And you're trying to join up with the rebel faction. Yeah, it was bizarre how much it copied Half-Life 2, albeit the cold open segment was great because it's really emotional.
Yeah.
You know, you
that got me set up for, you know, they gave me high expectations for the story.
Right.
And, like, I thought it was very interesting, and then I got into the game, and I was like, alright, what is this shit where I'm walking around with this woman, I have no idea who she is, and I was like, okay, I don't really care about this right now.
It was like, well, I mean, the cold open is great, but again, playing through the game again, it's just like, great,
boring.
Now I have to spend 20 minutes doing this again. You said that there is a mission select, but only for difficulties you've completed, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you want to go up to hard mode, then you have to do all that again, and...
And same thing for New Game Plus.
I mean, in the long run, this might not be that much of a problem. It just kind of sucked because you really wanted to play through it again.
Yeah.
And that early part killed it. Like, because Victor immediately after finishing the game was like, let me try it again on Survivor difficulty.
So at first I wanted to go through on New Game Plus on hard mode, but then it only let me do normal mode. So I said, let's do Survivor, because I unlocked that, and yeah, it didn't turn out so well.
Right. He only made it about an hour and a half in before he was like, just so bored and it's broken, but we'll get to that in a bit. Mostly right now we're trying to basically talk about the structure of the game and how the early part is so much weaker than everything else. Just for, like, despite how emotional that cold open is, it's still just a cinematic, you know, it's like, alright, well, that happened, you know, and then you're walking around with Tess, and that part is completely fucking boring. And it's really unnecessary. It feels like this incredibly long-winded tutorial, and at the time...
It really does.
When I was going into the game, after watching Victor and Brandon play it, they gave me the impression that it was mostly a letdown. Victor, after finishing it, was like, I was disappointed. He said there was, like, fun parts towards the end, but, like, it was over before he really got into it. Brandon didn't like it at all. He just sucked at it the whole way through, didn't enjoy it, was like, fuck that game. Both of you didn't really like the ending. I watched them play it. I liked the ending, but we'll get to that later. In this early part, I was sitting there criticizing it in my head while I'm playing. I'm like, yeah, this is... I'm, like, really bored walking around the city. I kept thinking of all these reasons that it didn't make sense, the plot line. Like, why are they living in cities? That was like,
just don't even get into all that.
Oh, I'm going to. I've written this stuff down. This is what I wanted to talk about. Why the hell are they living in cities? That bothered the shit out of me, because it's like we're in a post-apocalypse where there were zombies everywhere, right? And the first things we learned is that there were all these zombies in the cities. They ate all the people, right? And then there was quarantine zones set up inside the cities. Is where the quarantine zones are. And they bombed out all the outside of the quarantine zones. So that's why the cities are just fucking wrecked, because they were bombed to kill off all the zombies. But when you leave the quarantine zone, which you do at the very beginning of the game, and by the way, you get like no real sense of what the quarantine zone is like. Yeah. You really only see the sort of seedy underbelly of it, but you don't get to see what like the regular people are doing, you know? It was interesting because, like, when you're walking through that area, all you see is adults. And it's all, like, shady people who Tess knows. Yeah. It's, like, all her sort of black market
It's like the typical shady dudes.
Right. I mean, I did think it was cool, because I like Tess as a character because she is totally the boss. Yeah. Like, she has all the connections. She's, like, you know, she knows everyone. I thought it was interesting that she is Joel's boss, basically. He even calls her boss.
That's the weird thing, is that I didn't really know what the hell their relationship was the first time I played the game, and then like going back, I was like, all right, so she's definitely like the leader of everything.
Right. She's the leader because they're a partner. They're smugglers and they're a partnership. Yeah. But she is definitely the one who sets everything up. Because he's always talking about how he just wants to lay low and not fucking worry about anything. He just doesn't give a shit. Tess is the one who sets everything up and gets them the jobs, and she's the go-getter. But that's all you really see of the quarantine zone. And you get little hints of what it's like from talking to Ellie, but it's just not enough. Like, that's the interesting stuff. What happened to this world post-apocalypse? Yeah. Like, if you're going to set a game in a post-apocalyptic world, and you're going to make exploring that world, like, a key point of the game, seeing its beauty and its disheveledness, give us more information about it, you know? We get, like, these tiny little clues and snippets of information, but nothing that's, like, really, you know, oh, wow, that sounds cool. Like, we know that she went to a school. We know that...
You only ever see this fucked up part, and it's like, alright, so where is the regular life happening?
Right, because 20 years have passed.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of time.
Like, people have settled down.
Right. And the weirdest thing is that, like, you do get dialogue throughout the game, like little bits where Ellie is commenting about the fact that, because she wasn't even alive before the apocalypse, she's only seen the post-apocalyptic world. That is fascinating.
Yeah,
and they didn't explore it that much.
Yeah, I thought that was the most interesting part.
Right. And it bothered me because it was like she kind of talks... Because she is extremely believable as a modern teenager. And that's great, and it means the dialogue is fantastic. But when you stop to think about it, should she be believable as a modern teenager who grew up in a post-apocalyptic wasteland? What is the culture of this place, you know? How is it different from our culture? Clearly they won't have like mass media communications at all. Yeah. We know that. There doesn't seem to be TVs or computers in this new world. So what did she grow up on? Why does she talk like a normal modern person, you know? It's weird. I wouldn't say that she's so, because she's not really pop cultured or anything, obviously. So that helps. But she is she does seem a little too normal for a person who was born post-apocalypse, you know? But this game also isn't trying to be like an epic... It's not trying to be like a big fantasy RPG setting where it's like super well-developed world. It's mostly supposed to be a close look at these two characters, but still, it would have been really neat to learn more about what her life is like and what the life of this post-apocalyptic world is. But anyway, returning to my point about living in the cities, it bothered me because I was like, all the zombies are in the cities. Move out of the cities, you know? Why live there? Because when you leave the quarantine zone, you go to other cities, and there's always, like, bandits and gangs and stuff that are, like, patrolling the cities. Because obviously people are looking for supplies, and that's why they go to the cities. But fucking build a farm! Like, holy shit, you know? Like, out in the America, as a country, we inhabit 5% of this country. Most of this country is just open wilderness, where there are no zombies to find you. I'm pretty sure they established that these zombies have to eat to live. They can't just, like, live.
Did they?
Didn't they?
I don't know, because the clickers are supposed to be, like, really old zombies.
Right, but they still would have to eat other... I mean, I assume they might eat other zombies or something. Or
I have no idea.
I don't know. It's confusing.
Talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of flavor text in the game, but most of it is just boring and dry and doesn't tell you much, so...
I just find that sort of thing frivolous when it's not, like... Right. When it doesn't tell me.
I was just sitting there going,
facts.
Why the cities? Why go through this? Like, why couldn't, when you left the quarantine zone, why couldn't you have taken, like, some kind of around way to get to, why would they be at the town hall, first of all? Why not be at the outskirts of the city where it's super easy to reach you, you know? It just felt like such a hassle that everything is located in the middle of cities where you have to go through, like, all these fucking bombed out buildings and shit to get anywhere. It's like, why would they station themselves there? But, you know, that's just... And the fact that there's cops patrolling the cities trying to kill anyone on site, why would you stay? Why would you not go out where there's no cops? They're not going to be looking for you in the middle of the fucking outback, you know? Even if a zombie did stumble across your house in the middle of nowhere, you could, you know, one zombie's not hard to deal with. Just have some kind of defense system and you're fine, you know? But that is kind of addressed with Tommy's town, you know, Joel's brother. When you meet him, he has established a community out in the like near this electrical power plant somewhere. Yeah. And they just kind of built a shanty town. It's a small community, and they all live there. And I was like, this is what everyone should be doing. You know? So at least it was addressed at some capacity, and it is implied that they are living a fine life. Like, they get attacked every once in a while by bandits, but they're defending themselves, and they obviously don't have to worry about zombies. So that seems like the ideal situation. Why isn't everyone doing that, you know, in the past 20 years? But who knows? I mean, there's a lot you could explore about this world, and the game doesn't really do it, you know? So overall, I just found the post-apocalypse setting uninteresting. Yeah. So through the whole early part of the game, where it's mostly setting up this setting, it was not that interesting, you know? We could have got through a lot of those points a lot quicker. I do think it's cool that we get this sort of opening, because before we even meet Ellie, we get a lot established about Joel and Tess, about like what they're doing, you know, as smugglers. Yeah. And I thought that was cool, but it also just takes too damn long. Like, you know, playing, it wasn't that interesting the first time, and playing through it again, it's definitely not interesting, you know. It just goes to the kind of game they were trying to make was not one that was like high replay value, you know, arcadey sort of thing. It's meant to have lots of walking around bits, you know. There's parts where you're just walking around for like half an hour at a time. Yeah. Just like exploring, looking at shit, picking up cogs and stuff, you know. It's not a game where you click it up to hard mode and you go, yeah, let's run through it again, you know, like immediately. You just kind of wish you could, because the thing is a combat system in the game.
It has no replay value, but then they put in New Game Plus.
Right, that's what makes it weird.
Like, you guys are implying that you want me to play this again, but playing it again is grueling.
Right. Something we're definitely, a conclusion I think we're going to reach by the end of this, is that this game definitely does not know what it wants to be. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest problem with this game, as we will explain when we get into the stealth and stuff. I still want to go through the story, because that's the main draw of the game, really, is the story. The main characters, Joel and Ellie, are awesome. Yes. Everyone can pretty much agree on that. All the reviews that have come out just talk about how Ellie is this amazing character.
It's pretty much, like, I feel like I like Ellie a lot, but I don't really care about Joel. Like,
I love both of them.
I don't know.
But because Ellie, I don't think Ellie's as special as people are making her out to be. Just because she's an extremely believable teenager. It's like, well, okay, well, I don't really like teenagers in general.
Just a fun character in a dull world.
It's cool that she's, you know, they did a lot to make her likable. Yeah. She can pick up a gun and she kills a guy, and she has her reactions to everything seem so appropriate. Yes. That's really what makes her great, is that, like, the way she watches, like, when you're in a firefight and you fucking shoot a guy's face off, she's like, fucking dude, you know? Just those reactions are what made her character for me. It's just that she's, like, so, and, you know, when she kills someone, she's, like, upset about it, but it's like, I had to do it, you know? Yeah. She's extremely believable. Again, though, I don't consider believability to be the hallmark of a great character, you know? She is a great character because she's entertaining and fun to watch, and she's sympathetic enough that we totally get her connection to Joel, you know? Yeah. The ending of the game makes sense to us from watching their relationship, you know, unfold and stuff. So we get why he's attached to her. We're attached to her. You get to play as her, which is super cool. Yeah,
that was a cool part.
That was one of the coolest sections of the game. So yeah, she definitely is someone who becomes a badass in the course of her journey. Yeah. So she is a cool character. What I love about Joel is that he's just this old hard ass. Yeah. That's really what he is. He's just this old fucking set in his ways hard ass. He lost his daughter when he was young. He had a daughter when he was young. Yeah. Lost his daughter when he was young. He's probably like 30 at the start of the game, and 20 years pass. So almost half of his life he spent in a post-apocalyptic wasteland fighting zombies and just watching as humanity turns to shit for 20 straight years. You know, he was around before, he's around after. He's a great survivalist. He's totally just the brawn of the operation of him and Tess, where clearly he did not care about finding missions, doing shit. She was all about making connections and stuff. He was just the muscle, you know? He liked her, he liked their partnership, he did whatever and lived with it, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, and he's fucking brutal. He will
definitely
fucking
brutal.
Torture.
I love that near the end of the
people.
game where he just does not fuck around, and I was like, holy shit.
He does exactly what he wants,
fucking
gets his way, you know? So, yeah, what's great about Joel is he's kind of a dick. Throughout the whole game, he's kind of
definitely
a dick.
Even
when because, you know, he warms up to Ellie and all, but he's a dick to everyone else in the process. I mean, the whole end of the game is basically that he betrays the human race for the sake of Ellie, which is understandable because it's like, first of all, we don't even know if this is going to succeed. It's like the one person he actually cares about in the world, because he's lost his daughter, he lost Tess, now he's got Ellie, he finally cares about her, they've been through a lot together, and it's like, oh, we have to take her away, and we don't really know if this is going to work. What if she just dies in the procedure and nothing happens, you know? Or even if they get the vaccine, what then, you know? It was a hope, but these are people who are clinging to a sliver of hope, whereas he does not believe in a sliver of hope.
Yeah.
He spent 20 years watching slivers of hope be snuffed out. So to him, a sliver of hope means practically nothing. He never had any investment in the idea of her becoming a cure. He tells, even when he gets to Tommy's house, he cares about Ellie at that point, but he doesn't take her the rest of the way. He was like, I want to put you off on him. It's his crusade. He's interested in what this is going to happen. And the only reason he goes with her is not because he cares about a cure for humanity. He cares about Ellie and her emotions, so he goes with her. But then in the end, when it's like, oh, she's going to die? Fuck this. I don't care about the cure for humanity. That's not why I came here, you know? So he just fucking kills everyone and leaves.
It was a no-brainer to him.
Right.
There was
he
no
just
second
instantly
thought.
fucking murders everyone. Yeah, we talked about Ellie. We talked about Joel. We talked about Tess. I like Tess. Those guys didn't care about Tess. Victor was happy when she got killed the first time.
At that point, the world and the characters were reminding me of The Walking Dead a lot, so it was not interesting to me at all, and I have bitter feelings about that, and so I had bitter feelings going into that section of the game.
I was telling Victor about how, because just the dialogue in the game is so good and so well delivered that all the characters work for me because
it was a great scene when she died, though. I was like, I wish I had cared about her.
Right. It was a good death scene. Yeah, there's just a lot of great dialogue in the game, although, because after that segment is where you go and meet Bill, and this is the first time the game starts, because the whole early segment, as Victor said, like the first 2 hours of the game feels like one long tutorial, maybe even more than 2 hours, could be even 3 hours. It's a long, for you it was probably 3.5, 4 hours, because you took a lot longer to play through there. Because the early part, like, you do the mission with Tess and Joel, and it was funny because I watched Brando play, and I think I watched you play at some point, where you guys were, like, trying to stealth through this early segment, because it was, like, the first open environment for shootout, and you guys were trying to stealth through it, and it just looked like hell, and I went in, and I just played it like a shooter game, like, I played it like any level of Uncharted, and had no problem, and I went, yeah, this is how I'm going to play this game. Then I immediately kicked it up to hard mode, because it had been so, like, I was making a mockery. There's like, you know the scene where you team up with Marlene and she's like, all right, we have to stealth this part. So you take out that guy, I take out this guy. I shot that guy in the face. I did not even bother. I just let everyone come at me. I beat them all up with my fists, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm turning it up to hard mode because this is like laughably easy.
Especially like when I went back on Survivor, I stealthed the whole thing and it was really fucking easy.
Right. Marlene was not that interesting, but except for the fact that she gets killed.
Yeah, she was pretty
But after that whole intro segment, which is sort of tutorial-like, when you get to Bill's place, that's where it really opens up. There's a lot more, there's like a good 45-minute, not even, probably 30-minute exploration segment where it's like really quiet. You're just kind of finding stuff, you know, getting new weapons, finding things around the town, just, you know, sort of lets you breathe and explore. Then you meet up with Bill. He's a pretty cool character. Bill is one of the few people he's sympathetic just because he's a badass teammate. Because, like, it's not only that, because first of all, I love Southern accents. So, like, Joel's voice is my favorite thing ever. Just, his voice is fucking fantastic. This deep, Southern, old man accent, I love it. Ellie's got a great, all the voice acting is, you know, fantastic in the game. Bill is fun because he's just this paranoid Southern dude. He's gay, and he's paranoid, and he's a total hard ass, but at the same time, you feel like like Joel could easily beat the shit out of him. You know, he's not like he's not like imposing. Yeah, he's an awesome teammate because he'll just fucking slash up clickers and stuff like as they're attacking you. So you're like, fuck yeah, Bill is a bro, man. His section's pretty cool. I
didn't really enjoy that part either.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I wasn't into the game yet.
Right. It still wasn't, that part was not that fun. It was kind of a chore to play through, and it was still, for me, super easy. Through this point of the game, I was just dicking around. Victor got mad watching me play because it was like, I was just making such a mockery out of what had for him and Brandon been like a difficult stealth game, and I was making it look like this fucking retarded action game. Yeah. But it finally, after that, when you get to the next segment where you finally get to the city, and this is where it's the first time you don't have really any partners, you're just kind of alone. It's you and Ellie. It's mostly about them bonding. There's a lot of shootouts with no real cutscenes in between. Yeah. Like, for a while. Like, a good hour and a half of just... This is where the game really starts to take off for me. Where it was like... You know,
just shooting people. I just like shooting people.
Yeah, the zombie parts are actually the more boring parts.
Yeah,
because
they're
it's just like you sneak around, you kill a bunch of zombies, and it's like by the numbers, you know. And it's kind of hard to fail at those parts unless you get one hit kill by a fucking clicker,
yeah,
which is
exactly.
bullshit, you know.
It's like that's the only part where it got really challenging.
So with the other guys, with the humans, you know, they're intelligent, they run around, they try to shoot you. That's the important, because zombies can't shoot you. Yeah. So, you know, like with runners, all you gotta do is they run up to you and then you beat the fuck out of them. They're dead. It's like, whatever. So once you finally start fighting people, that's when you get into the more tactical shootouts, which really bring up like the Uncharted feel, you know. And so, yeah, there's a lot of big shootouts in these big open locations where you can run around a lot, find your way, you know, find lots of items laying around, a lot less cutscenes, and it really started to feel like, okay, now we're actually playing a game and not just watching an interactive movie, you know. Yeah, that was where I started to enjoy myself. That whole part of the game is fun. And then you pick up this, the black guy, what's his name? Henry, and his brother. They weren't that interesting at all, really.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything.
Literally, I didn't feel anything about them until the cutscene before they die. Right. And I was like, oh, I feel bad for this kid. And then it was like, oh, they're dead. Well, yeah,
now. Right. They were, you know, they were just another survivalist pair. They were like a parallel to them. That whole thing, because it definitely, you brought up Mushishi, but it's way more like Kino's journey.
Oh, yeah.
It gets really...
Well, I just meant that structure.
It gets really Kino's journey through this part of the story, and that's kind of the structure of the story, is... Because if you've ever seen or read Kino's journey, it's like about this girl who just... She travels the world and only stays in one place for 3 days at a time, as a rule. And basically sees all of the highs and lows of humanity, usually right next to one another. Mm-hmm. And this section of the game was extremely Kino's journey, in that it's like you meet up with some people, you learn their basic story, they help you for a little while, and then they get killed, you know? And it was like...
And then it's like, you come and go from that place and you had no reason to be there.
Right, exactly. There was no... That's the longest section of the game by far. Like, the whole midsection is that city area. And it was just... You were there for no reason, and you leave because you escaped. You know, like, it was just sort of the frivolity and pointlessness of their journey kind of unfolding before you. After that, you get to the Tommy section, which is where you meet your brother for the first time since the cold open. This is a really short section.
Yeah. It felt almost pointless to me, besides the bit of character development you get.
Well, because I guess partly because I was spoiled for the ending already. But to me, the whole time it was obvious that the point of this place was that you were going to come back here. This was going to be where they live at the end, you know? So I figured that was the point, was this is the home. This is the hope for this is the real hope. Yeah. Rather than her, whereas her cure... Her magical mystery cure, if you will, was just something that was like a faint hope. This guy had actually established a real community that was working, you know, and even though they get attacked while you're there, they fend the enemies off, you know, and it feels like they're really working towards something good. And maybe that's where the real future for humanity lies, is making these small communities, you know. So that was really the point of that section, I think. And I thought it was cool for that reason, but this is also where the gameplay started to shake a bit for me. There's a really obnoxious firefight there, but we'll get into that in a bit when we start actually talking about the mechanics, which we've spent like 30 minutes just talking about the story so far. Moving on, then you go into the winter section. This is obviously supposed to be the big balls to the... Well, first you go to the what's it called?
That pointless place.
The
the university.
You go to the university. That place is super cool for exploration. I found some like really interesting stuff there.
It was pretty much there. All you really do is explore, and then there's a short firefight, and then you're gone.
Right. There's some firefights with zombies there, and then there's a short firefight while you're on your way out, and then you go to the winter section, and this is supposed to be the big, like, I guess it's the emotional, not the emotional climax, but it's basically where shit happens. Yeah. Where the character development happens, because it's the first time you have to play as Ellie. She really comes into her own. She has her big moment where she has to kill this fucking pedophile guy.
She has her
who fucking sounds like Bob Ross. And
it's funny because the whole time you're playing as her, she keeps going like, "You could do this, Ellie."
Really? Does she say that?
Yes. She said it several times. And I was like, is this just like a girl thing?
It's funny because you literally start off with her hunting deer with a bow and arrow, saying you can do this. It was like the exact same thing. The game, it feels weirdly that it's got so much stuff that's similar to, because, you know, he falls on a thing like she did and everything. It feels so weirdly similar to Tomb Raider in a lot of ways, even though they were obviously being made at the same time. So then again, this is
Tomb Raider's just like Uncharted.
Yeah. nah, this is from Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
So because everyone always says, oh yeah, the new Tomb Raider is basically like Uncharted, you know, it's like, well, there you go, it's Naughty Dog. So definitely some people who are like taken from the same pool of inspiration here. That was your favorite part of the whole game, both in terms of story and gameplay. Because the ending, the last firefights are kind of uneventful.
Yeah,
it's
they're just kind
because
of lame.
Throughout the game, there always felt like there was a level, like you were in this big stage, and the last section doesn't really feel like that.
Yeah,
you know, you fight a couple zombies. And that part's basically there's one big zombie fight and one big humans fight, but the big zombie fight is disappointingly easy because zombie fights, what made them hard is usually that you were in this dark, tight location where you couldn't really run around and like find your way. But the last zombie fight is like in this big open sewer, and you can
see
just
the exit
waste
from the beginning.
Everything. I destroyed everything in that area with no trouble whatsoever. Like I didn't even die at that part. And then the last human section is actually a really intense firefight if you try to take out all the guards. But it's like frustratingly hard if you do that. So instead, I just ran straight for the exit. And you can literally just bypass the last two firefights. Which is odd, because throughout a lot of the game, you have to kill everyone in a lot of the big firefights. Yeah. This one...
And it's the last firefight, and they didn't even kill all the guys.
So, even though it should have been this, like, big epic challenge, you can just kind of run to the exit. Yeah. And that's what I did, because I was ill-equipped for the fight, so I just went, fuck it, zoom, zoom, zoom. Or rather, not that I was ill-equipped, but I would, you know, there was like 10 guys, and I'd kill 9 of them, get killed by the 10th guy, and be like, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore, you know? I don't want to keep replaying the same 15-minute firefight over and over again. I just want to run to the exit and be done with it. So that's what I eventually did. And that summarizes the story. The ending I love because it really just emphasizes the frivolity of this journey where Joel was never really in it, you know. He never cared about this from the start. The idea that this was going to be the cure for whatever, he never believed that. It was always his story about just kind of being selfish, and he is selfish right to the end. He kills everyone, he lies to Ellie, done. You know, it was like, wow, what a fucking asshole, you know? What a brilliant asshole. But as a player, you're happy about it because you don't want Ellie to die. You know, in the end, it feels like a happy ending because you didn't want her to get, you know, to get cut up on the table. It's like, yeah, you doomed humanity, but but you totally get why Joel did it. For me, it was like, yeah, that's probably what I would have done.
Of course,
you know, because I wouldn't have trusted that.
Humanity.
Well, I wouldn't have trusted that it was actually going to work. It's like, oh, so what if she dies and we get nothing out of this? You know. It would have ruined, and that was the only thing he had left was her. So it's like, yeah, this is really not worth it for me. You know, fuck this, not taking the risk, and I totally get that. So I thought it was a great ending for that storyline. So we've talked about the characters, we've talked about why the post-apocalyptic setting is uninteresting. As a perfect way to transition between the story elements of the game and the gameplay elements, let's talk about the literal moments where it transitions, which are awkward as fuck.
Yes.
There's a part early in the game, after you're following Tess around. Throughout the whole game, it's never looked like a firefight location. It's always just looked like a video game, or like a interactive story place, right? Yeah. You're in these open streets throughout both the intro and the part with Tess. You're talking to all these people, and then literally, you walk through an area. Like, you just walk through like an alley, and you're in the next area. And you can clearly see that there are 6 chest-high walls that are just like they're just like air vents or whatever, but they're because okay, if you were going to put a bunch of air conditioners on your roof, you would put them in a.
They weren't air. It was they were just like.
What were they?
They were literally chest high walls.
They were something. They were some
kind of
like
thing. Roadblocks or something. They were
whatever they
like
were.
Chest high walls
they weren't set up in any kind of pattern that a human would put things in. They were not in a grid-like pattern. They were all set up like, hey, this is how a firefight in a video game looks, where the walls are all tilted slightly, and you've got to. It was like it was mind blowing.
Glaringly obvious.
It was really mind blowing, like because it was in a cutscene when you walk in, and it's just like showing the area, and you're like, I think we're gonna have a firefight. And of course, exactly that's what happens, and that happens a lot in the game. You'll leave a cutscene into a location where you're like, oh, you think there's gonna be a firefight here? There's fucking chest high walls everywhere, you know. It was just really awkward and jarring.
That scene, it's like perfectly burnt into my brain. Like, they walk into this room and there's chest high walls. And I was like, chest high walls!
I can remember it so perfectly. I feel like even in Gears of War, I feel like in the cutscenes, shit looked like it did in the gameplay.
Uh-huh.
You know, like there were chest-high walls everywhere, just in the world.
Yeah.
You know, like that was just the world. It was a world of chest-high walls. This game just, to go from wide open streets to just suddenly there's stuff placed perfectly. It was really weird. And it does that a few times throughout the game. So that's awkward as shit. Some more awkward stuff that is really immersion breaking. Now, I don't really believe in the idea of immersion the way some people do, where they're like, oh yeah, I want to feel like I'm a part of that world. It's like, no, I want to feel like I'm interacting with the world in an interesting way.
Yeah.
I never stop feeling like I'm playing a video game. I never feel like I am the character or some bullshit like that. That's not the point. Immersion to me, or getting immersed in the world, isn't about feeling like you're in the world. It's about feeling like the world is interesting, that moving around it is interesting, that you're enjoying yourself seeing this world, not that you're in the world. But there is some stuff in this game that just really takes you out of the experience. Especially the fucking AI of your partners. Because the weirdest thing about this game is that it appears to be a stealth game. As we are going to dissect at great length in a bit, it's not a stealth game. But it appears to be. And there are segments where you really have to stealth. Like, there's no real two ways about it. Especially one segment early on where it's like, there's a bunch of clickers in this room. There's like 6 of them. And they can't see you. They can only hear. But you have to crouch and walk real slow to walk around this room. But your partners, your AI partners, the enemies can't sense them at all. They can't see them. They can't hear them. They can't do anything to them. Unless they specifically engage
unless your partner
them.
Shoots them and that ruins
right,
your cover.
and well, they won't do that unless you pull a gun. But even when you're sneaking, you're walking around, you're being all quiet, and your friends just running around the whole area. They're following you and getting behind cover, but they're like sprint, right, like literally crossing in front of a zombie's path of vision.
They'll smack into them.
And you're just like, I look like an ass right now. That's how I felt.
Yep.
More than anything, I felt like it made me an ass. I was like, really? I'm sitting here crouched, like practically on all fours.
Like barely touching the stick to make yourself move.
And then I just see fucking Tess whole ass across the room in front of me. And I'm like, what are you doing? What the fuck? And she'll get behind a wall, but it'll be right in front of the zombie, and she's just staring up at it. Even the runners, she's just staring up at the runner, like, and it's just, you know, like not even. And I'm like, what the fuck is this bullshit? You'll be in a firefight with dudes, and you're like stealthing around, and Ellie is just like, and they're like, well, I can't find him, you know, and she's like, I'm like, what the fuck? Why? Just why? Why? They don't really help you that much, so why even put them, like, why not just have them wait? You know?
I know, like, there's
the segment right before that, they wait.
Segment, they wait.
It's really weird, and I don't get it, and it's the most immersion-breaking thing that I've seen, like, ever. It's just mind-blowing to witness happening. Like I said, I feel like an ass.
Definitely makes you feel like an ass.
So yeah, let's just get right into the combat now. So, the combat system, in reality, is the same as Uncharted.
Yeah.
The problem is that it does not appear to be. This was what led Victor and Brando to not enjoy the game the first time they played through it. Because Victor played through, and the game literally tells you to stealth through a lot of it.
Yeah.
They will say, you have to be quiet, you have to conserve ammo, let's not make any noise here, right? So it leads you to believe that you have to stealth. The problem is that the stealth mechanics in the game are broken as fuck.
Yeah.
First of all, if one enemy in an area sees you, everyone is immediately on alert. Yeah. Everyone. They just instinctively
their guns
know where
are
you
out and they know where your head is. Like,
exactly.
It's immediate.
They immediately know where you are, how to shoot you. They don't even have to aim. You're just done. So you can't play through it like, I mean, you can run away and hide and like get your cover back, but it's like you can't just worry about each individual. You have to, as soon as you get alerted, everyone's after you. So the only way you can kill people through stealth is by sneaking up behind them and like choking them out. But sometimes the arenas aren't laid out well for that. You'll get spotted in these positions where you really shouldn't have.
And choking a guy out takes like 10 damn seconds.
Right.
It's incredibly time consuming, and then that's the only way you can kill a guy without alerting everyone.
Exactly.
They give you a shiv, so you can go up behind a guy and stealth kill him with a shiv, but that alerts everyone in the room.
Right, it doesn't make any sense.
It's pointless.
The only point of the shivs is to kill clickers. That's the only reason they exist in the game. And to open doors.
Well, then they told me to do that, you know?
Right. It's dumb. The game, though if you follow the game's instructions, you will not be as good at it as if you just pretend it's Uncharted. Because, yeah, these early stealth sections, there's this one where it's infamous now because this is where Victor gave up on hardcore difficulty.
Yeah, Survivor.
And it's or Survivor difficulty. Because the only difference between the difficulties is that you get a lot less equipment the higher the difficulty
pretty much.
is. You get less ammo,
and other
less
very
shit.
subtle things.
And, like...
On Survivor, you can't use the listen mode, and it doesn't do like the button commands.
I never used
like when you're punching a guy, it doesn't tell you when to press triangle or whatever.
Right, which
it's pointless. It really doesn't make a difference.
Not difficult. So the main difference is just that you have less supplies, which does mean that you have to stealth more. But like this early segment is so funny because you get a handgun, and I had no bullets left in my gun anyway when I got into the segment. But it gives you a revolver with 6 shots in it, and then you drop into this area where there's 5 runners and 1 clicker.
Yeah.
And if you alert anything in this room, everything's on your ass, and there's no way you're going to kill the clicker in time. Like, if it comes running at you, then you can't... Because they take 4 shots to kill. So, like, even trying to line up a headshot or whatever is, like, really difficult. And the weapons have a lot of sway, so it's hard to aim. On purpose. That's how the game is meant to be. It's meant to be difficult to use guns. But... stealthing all 5 guys is so time-consuming and aggravating.
And next to impossible.
And so difficult because their walk patterns and stuff, the way they're synchronized, just trying to strangle a guy without getting noticed by the next guy is really hard.
But the thing, that was what made it hard on normal mode.
But what made it hard on...
What made it hard on Survivor mode was that it just seemed to be completely broken. Right. Where it's like, I would be walking up behind a guy, and then 5 out of 10 times he decides to turn around and kill me, like, randomly. Whereas I got it right the time before doing the exact same thing. The next time, he just decides to kill me.
As you said once, it very much seems like there's, like...
a dice roll.
Yeah, like Melee is on a dice roll, where I would run up to some guy, and I'd hit square... and then it would decide that he blocked my punch and hit me. And the guy would not even have been looking at me. Like, he'd be turned away. And especially in the Ellie segment, where, like, I'd run up on someone, and I'd go to, like, I'd hit square to knife them, and then all of a sudden he'd teleport, have my hand in his hand, and then be punching me in the face. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened, you know? So, yeah, and that happens a lot, like, to an insane bullshit game-breaking degree.
Yeah.
Where even when I was trying to have fun, there were certain firefights that were just infuriating because of that shit. And there's no way I'd come back to the game for the combat, you know?
Yeah.
Like, even though I enjoyed it overall, I would not replay it if I was like, oh man, I love cover-based shooters and this one was pretty okay. I'd be like, but I'll go play Gears, you know, like I'll go play an Uncharted game even, you know. It's kind of horribly broken. And trying to stealth through this section, like Victor, he played it a shitload of times on normal, killed everyone, killed the clicker. What I did was, I walked in, and the first guy, there's like one guy who you're automatically you're gonna be able to strangle this guy. I strangle him, I find the clicker, empty all 6 of my shots into it so it dies, and then all the runners come after me, and I beat them all to death with my fists.
Yep.
And this is how I handled the whole early section of the game, was just that I would just run up to everything and beat it to death. Because your fists are like way OP in the game. You will take damage anytime you enter a fist fight, but you'll always win the fist fight. So as long as it comes down to how many enemies do I have to worry about, like let's say there's 5 enemies in a room, and you have like a certain amount of health. It's like, alright, if I take out 2 guys with my gun, I have enough health that I can now run up and just beat the shit out of everyone else, you know? Obviously this doesn't work as well with guys who have guns, but then you just get a little more tactical. It's not hard. You can always find a way to make it work, unless you are later in the game where I got fucked over. Yeah, it's very much a game where you can just beat the shit out of everyone, and stealthing doesn't work. It's broken. The mechanics for stealthing are broken. So that leaves you with a shooter slash beat 'em. And I mean, this makes the game more fun for me. I hate stealthing, and I love tactical shooting, because it's mostly about managing which guns you take out which guys with, where you're standing, who you can beat up, you know, thinking on the fly, because your enemies are moving around and stuff. Throughout the midsection of the game, there are some brilliant shootouts, you know. The one where you first give Ellie a gun, and she's like helping you with the rifle. Dude, that was the most hilarious firefight ever, because I get up into this building, like I take out a bunch of guys, get up into this building, and I go into this one room, because everywhere in the level had multiple entrances, so enemies could get at me from whichever way, and most of the game is like that. It usually doesn't give you a good hiding spot that's like absolute. But there was one place, this one windowless building, like way up in the far side of the arena, and I got up in there, and none of the enemies were in there, so they were slowly coming to me, and I strangled like 8 guys in one room. Each of them would come up, they'd go into the room, be looking for me, and then I'd strangle them and wait for the next guy. And it was so fucking hilarious. I was like, this room is going to be haunted forever. Which reminds me, if anybody's interested in watching footage of me playing this game, there is about 10 hours of it on my Twitch TV account. Yeah. Because I live streamed the whole, like, more than half the game I live streamed. So I started from, like, right after the Bill segment, like, right when I got into the city. And yeah, the whole city section had a lot of, like I said, there were cool firefights, but they were still pretty broken, you know? Yeah. I'd still feel like I was just overpowering enemies with bullshit more than, like, you know, like, legit tech. Like, first of all, they would be overpowered in bullshit ways too, where I'd like shoot somebody and their animation would just like teleport, you know? Because the animations are ridiculous. Enemies will be moving and it's like you should have got the headshot, but then they're suddenly looking in the opposite direction. You're like, what the fuck just happened, you know? So yeah, it's like trying to just play it like a shooter is nightmarish. Enemies don't stand around the way they would in like, you know, if you try to play it like Mass Effect 3 or fucking or a Gears of War game, you're gonna have a hard time. But Uncharted was like this. Because I played Uncharted 1 on the highest difficulty, and it was like this. Yeah. It just was also a game that was kind of broken as far as third-person shooters go, you know, because it wasn't trying to be one, just like The Last of Us isn't. It was also this game that was also about story and platforming and stuff. So people gave it a free pass on its broken-ass combat system because it was just like a means to an end to play through this game. But giving it a free pass just didn't, you know, it's like, why? The other stuff in the game is not so great that it alleviates the fact that it's horribly broken, you know? Yeah. No matter what, it's horribly broken. You play through it, and this stuff is distracting. It's not like I'm going, oh, well, I can ignore the fact that the combat sucks because it's got a great story. It's like, no, because the combat was frustrating as shit, you know?
And the combat is the part that's an actual video game.
Right, and it is the bulk of the game, you know? Yeah. Even though there are a lot of cutscenes, they aren't really that long. There's no like 20-minute cutscenes
Metal Gear
in the game.
Solid cutscenes.
It's a lot less narrative driven than say BioShock Infinite is, where you really felt like you were getting info dumped constantly, you know. Whereas this game tries to withhold its info for a lot of it, you know. Yeah. There are notes that you can pick up that give you like flavor text, but none of it really is interesting at all. It's just like micro stories about the people in this post-apocalyptic place. But it's not interesting in like a world building way. They're usually just like, oh hey, I was waiting for this guy and he never showed up, and then like it's always like someone's last words before they got eaten by zombies and stuff, you know. None of it really expands the world in any way. It's just kind of there. So I didn't see the point of those at all.
Yeah, if you're not gonna world build with those, then why am I reading
exactly them? Like at least the voxophones and shit in BioShock like actually taught you something. These don't teach you shit. They're just like little individual stories. But yeah, when you first played the game, you had described it as that it gets better throughout. Like, you know, the mid-section is better than the early section. The snow part was your favorite part. Yeah. And the very ending is only where it starts to, like, it's like, okay, well, that was kind of shitty, right? Yeah. But for me, I got to the snow section, because the whole mid-section of the game, as I described, was exactly like I said. It's paced well. It's mostly you playing. There's a lot of cool shit you get to do. The firefights are big, expansive, open, blah, blah. Then there's the snow part, and this part is meant to be extremely difficult, only it goes way overboard. Because first you have to play, and mind you, I was still on hard mode the whole way through the game, so when you get to the Ellie segment, she's way underpowered. Her weapons kind of suck, she has very little ammo, her knife is, like, you know, her melees are worthless. So first of all, that was the hardest part for me, was that I was used to melee and shit, and then I suddenly can't really do it anymore. But I did get through her segment. But then I got to the part where you're playing as Joel, and you're supposed to be, like, injured, and you're searching for Ellie. The thing is, it started me off with, like, half health, and in this whole big-ass shootout, there were no healing items. Yeah. So no matter what, I could only take 3 hits before I was done. And the enemies have such ridiculous bullshit AI that there was no way I could beat them, because I have to aim my guns, you know? Like, I would shoot the first guy, and by the way, this took place in a fucking snowstorm, so you can't see shit, and they're not supposed to be able to see you easily either. But there's like 6 guys, and you shoot one, and all of them are instantly alerted to your area. Some guys will run at you, some guys have shotguns, and there's one guy with a Molotov cocktail, and he is my worst enemy. Because the Molotov guys can throw... first of all, they can see you despite whatever cover they're behind from across the arena, and they can chuck these things forever, and you cannot usually see them coming in time. Or like you'll hear him say like, here it comes, and then like once it clicks you're like, oh shit, he's throwing a Molotov, and you start running, but then it blows up on you because you can't just jump and run that fast. So you're basically fucked with these guys. One Molotov is instant death for me in this section. So I have like I actually had enough ammo to take out everyone, but it was a matter of finding cover, taking them out efficiently, and then not getting killed when they can all hit scan perfectly, fucking hit me no matter what. You know, I pop my head out for a second and they can shoot me. There's this one bullshit segment where it actually funnels you through a fence and there's no cover to get behind. And you have, like, basically, there's no possible way to play through this section without getting shot because they can all sense you immediately and you can't get to cover quick enough. And I sat there, you know, I was looking for all the alternatives. I was like, there's got to be a way. There has to be. And I searched the whole area, and there was nothing. And I was like, what the fuck? So the only way I could get through it was just by pure Twitch shooting, like, insanity, and basically fucking with the game. Where I'd do that shit where I'd, like, hit the L button over and over again, like, pop my head up, like, ooh, 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 like a bunny rabbit, you know, it was like, blah, 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 and, like, trying to make the enemy waste their bullets, like, trying to shoot me. So it's like gaming the system, basically, you know, and, like... or positioning myself in a way where I like find the tiniest hole and shoot a guy who's behind cover in the small bit of his back that's showing, and then when his head pops out I shoot him again. I mean, I'm used to doing that in games, but it just felt so like, this is not right. This is not good level design for this shootout. I should have more health in this, and in the part where I had no health, I had to turn it down to normal mode. I played like 30 to 35, probably more than that. I died like a good 35 to 40 times in that segment. Ask the live streamers. I don't know. I was probably doing it for like a good hour, just trying to get to this one firefight, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I could not bring myself to try it anymore, you know? The one time, because it was also a long segment before you get to save, so like, I'd kill all these guys, get to the, like, near the exit, and then get shot, and I'd just be like, I can't believe I have to do that again. I just spent 15 minutes doing that, you know? So... yeah, it could get really infuriating at parts like that. And then, as I told you, the very end of the game, there's this huge shootout, and like I said, I just ran to the exit. Like, I enjoyed the shootout. I thought it was well done, but dying on the last guy over and over again, you know, was just like, I don't want to keep playing through this whole thing over and over and over again. I'm just gonna fucking hoof it, and I did that. So, yeah, I had problems with the late game, especially because I was on hard mode. You know, I feel like because once I kicked it down to normal, it felt like a normal shootout. It's like I had enough health that I felt like I could get through there, you know. It still didn't even give me any health. Well, rather, I just got, like, I was so fed up at that point that I kicked it down to normal, and I still died a few times, but it was mostly out of sheer recklessness. Like, I was just running around... like, with a rifle and just, like, running out in the open, just, like, shooting at people from every which angle, just, like, running around like I was playing Gears of War and being a jackass, you know, so, yeah, the game, it's weird, it's easy to play, but when it's hard, it's mostly for bullshit reasons, you know?
It doesn't feel fair when it's hard.
It's not a case of you feeling like, oh, I conquered this adversity through my skill. You feel like I conquered it through gaming the system and the shittiness of the enemy AI, you know, occasionally. So, yeah, it was weird. I wrote down, apparently, I felt like the spawn of hell. This is what I wrote in my notes halfway through the game because I was so OP. And I would just... because Joel is a big dude. And I would just... like I said, I spent most of the game just beating the shit out of people. And we are going to talk about, this is probably what makes the game, actually. The best part about it is that the combat, regardless of how it's built, how broken it is, feels fantastic.
It does.
That is what makes this game for me, is that running around and fighting and everything feels amazing. Your guns all have this kick. They sound great. They crunch on the end, and you're just like taking enemies' face off like every time. You shoot a guy in the head, and his head fucking explodes, and Ellie goes, "Holy shit!" And you're just like, "Yes," because I'm usually saying it too.
Exactly.
Like, I say "holy shit," and then she says "holy shit." And you know, when you're playing a game, you often have those moments of satisfaction where you're like, "Boom, headshot," you know, that kind of thing. There's a lot of that in this game. Just watching you guys play, like I'd watch Victor play, and I'd go, "Damn, you just fucked that guy up," you know?
Oh my god, it's when it was me, you, and Donson, it was just constantly, I was just like, "Oh shit, yeah, fuck you."
Yeah, so if you watch my live stream, there are so many moments of me just like screaming in victory at the game. I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, you done dickled," and I'd run up to people, and the best part is that you can anticipate the hits and stuff, you know, because everything has this boom kick to it. So like I'd run up to a guy and I'd start punching him, and I'd be like, "Don't you fuck with me, motherfucker!" You know, like you yell with
then
the hits
smash
kind
your
of
face
thing.
on a wall. And it's
exactly,
great.
it's when you
or you
beat
stomp
people
their
up
head into the ground.
you're just like you pulling back just these massive hits, and the guys are like fucking on the ground, and you stomp them and you beat them into counters and blow their you just smash people's faces into shit all the time. Yeah, it's insanely violent, and it just feels crunchy and beautiful, and that's the best part of the game. Shooting people is so satisfying. Just everything you do. There are segments where like even the cutscenes, there's a lot of gratification where it's just like you struggled and then it pays off in some big way where someone just gets fucked up, you know. The end of the Ellie segment where when you fight the fucking this Bob Ross pedophile motherfucker, and not saying Bob Ross is a pedophile, but the guy sounded like Bob Ross and was a pedophile. And he's like basically trying to rape Ellie, and you do this whole boss fight against him, and then he like gets on top of her, and she gets this fucking machete, because first of all you stab him like 3 times, and all 3 of those stabs you're like, yeah! And then she gets a machete, fucking slices him, and then just beats his face into nothing with the machete, and it was fucking glorious. That was the most like payoff.
That's why
high adrenaline.
That was my favorite part of the game, because there was a big payoff, and it made you feel cool.
And there's definitely a lot of segments like that where you just feel like, ugh, yeah, I fucked that guy up, you know. You get to the last guy in a section, you just beat the shit, and like all the melee weapons are fantastic. You know, you get a pipe and beat someone to death with a pipe, and it feels like you're beating someone to death with a pipe, or the axe, which is like a one-hit kill. You just run up to somebody and axe them in the face.
You fuck them up.
Fantastic.
Like 56% of my kills were melee kills. You should look up your statistics.
I'm sure I had a fuckload of melee kills.
56% melee kills, 30% headshots.
Right. So, like, this one section in Tommy's part was one of the most bullshit firefights in the game because it didn't give you enough cover. There's a guy with a Molotov cocktail. Again, this was one of those sections where I had enough health, but I had no ammo in any guns. And the way the level was set up was, like, funneling you for a gunfight. Again, the game can't decide if it wants to be a survival stealth game or an action shooter. So it gives me no ammo and then puts me in a situation where I literally couldn't stealth anyone because it was instantly alert section, and there was no like hiding places. And I'm like, how am I supposed to play a shooter game with no ammo?
That's the thing. It's like, are you literally only stealthing through the section so you can blow it all in a big shootout section? Like, is that what you're saving up for?
Exactly. Like, so this section, and there was like you played through the whole time. Like, basically, he shows you around his town. You don't get any ammo, and then all of a sudden you're in a firefight, and it's like, shit, I have nothing. So I'm like trying to use my bare minimum and just try to beat up as many people as possible. So like I just like run around like crazy, waiting for people to like cross the bridge. And then I had an axe, and this one guy with a Molotov cocktail, I was so mad at him that I kept like hunting him down, like because at certain points in the fight I'd just get mad and like do whatever, like to be just a dick around. And so I'd get mad at the Molotov guy and I'd just chase him down and fucking axe him to death, and that was incredibly satisfying, you know. And there's other bullshit like fucking one segment right after the Tommy's part where you're on the horse, and I killed all these guys. And then it gets me on the horse, and then I find all this ammo, and I was like, let me get off the horse. I need the ammo. I couldn't get off the horse, and I was just like, I want that ammo. Yeah, like the crunchy violence is great. It feels good, but the game isn't a good shooter, and it isn't a good stealth game. So it's fun, but it's not something I'd come back to. You know? I mean, even like when I stopped playing the first night I was playing it was after one of the coolest firefights in the game. It was this big, epic, open firefight, and I still didn't feel like I wanted to pick it up the next day. I was like, do I really have to finish The Last of Us? That's why I did it in a live stream, because I didn't really feel incentive to play the rest of the game, so I did it in a live stream, and I spent a good amount of the game being really frustrated and bitching about the enemies teleporting around my fucking bullets and stuff, you know? I mean, it was kind of a two-way street. There were times where I just, like, serpentined fucking bullets, you know, and killed a guy and stuff like that. So, yeah, sometimes the enemy AI was absolute dick, and sometimes it was just everyone knows exactly where you are and can shoot you, you know? So, it's definitely... It's just broken.
It's weird.
It's broken.
It's broken, weird.
I mean, overall, I enjoyed the game.
Yeah.
Because it at its core, it is exactly what I want out of a game. Because it's basically my style of game. Because Uncharted, when I first played it, was like my favorite game.
Yeah.
You know, mind you, I hadn't played like anything in a long time except Uncharted, but I loved it when I played it the first time. I beat it on the highest difficulty, because the things that I value most in the games are the feeling of movement and just, like, tactical shootouts, basically. Because I love over-the-shoulder shooters. Mass Effect, Gears of War, like I said, Uncharted. What's another one? I love the new Tomb Raider. It's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite game of the year so far.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I love over-the-cover. And the reason I love Tomb Raider is because you can run around, and it feels really good to run around. You can do all this jumping and climbing, and it's fun, you know? And... this game taps into that in a lot of ways, you know? Like, some of the most fun I had was, like, I got to the university, and there's, like, 20 minutes of just me running around climbing shit, you know, for no reason. And you can ride the horse, and the horse feels cool. Yeah. So, yeah, moving around in the game feels nice. Shooting things feels nice. Even though it's broken, when it works, it's, like, it's impactful. If the game was as well made as Tomb Raider, I'd be, like, all over it, you know? Mind you, Tomb Raider has its own issues. This game has the same problem as Tomb Raider does, where it has too many segments that are just, like, pointless little cinematic running segments. But this game doesn't overplay it. Yeah. They never overstay their welcome. It's, like, literally 10 seconds long. It'll be like, oh, there's a turret, run! And you run for, like, 10 seconds and you're done. One thing that does need to be mentioned, the absolute worst part of the whole game, is ripped off from Tomb Raider, where you're upside down shooting at enemies. Yeah. Like, you get tied up by the ankle, and you're lifted up, and you're upside down, and you're shooting at enemies, and in a game that's all about ammo conservation, you suddenly have unlimited ammo. Yep. And it's just a shooting gallery.
Stupid.
And it's like, what the hell is going on? And it's boring and horrible and badly controlled, and I hated it.
Ultimately pointless.
And then there was a sniper section, which was similar in that it was just, okay, I've got a sniper, and now I'm taking out everything in one hit. Yeah. And it's got infinite ammo. You know, Victor liked it because you're sniping, but it was every game has this sniper section, you know? So, yeah, it was like, what the hell was the point of that? But other than those, for the most part, it wasn't intrusive. Whereas in Tomb Raider, it's totally intrusive. You get into these fucking long bullshit runaway segments that I hated, and they're all the time. But nonetheless, Tomb Raider had a lot more running around and jumping and doing fun stuff.
And exploration.
Exploration, which this game really needed more of. In a game that's about, like, foraging and picking shit up, it could have used... Like I said, the best parts of the game are big open environments, both for the shootouts and for the aftermath of the shootouts where you're picking stuff up. So, had the game been like that, you know, had the shooting been tightened up a lot, it would have been a much better game. The story is great and all, but that doesn't carry it for me. You know, it doesn't... There's never been a video game with a story so good that it made me ignore the rest of the game. Yeah. Never. It's never happened. You know, there's never been a game where I'm like, oh, but it was so deep and interesting. I don't fucking care. I have watched 1,000 anime. I have seen hundreds of movies. I have watched countless TV shows. I can get stories anywhere. The reason I play video games is for the interactive story, for the one that feels fun to play, that feels good. If it's horribly broken, it won't matter what the story is like. And even though this game has some of the best dialogue I've ever heard in a game, one of the best stories I've seen, even though it's not really deep or interesting, the characters are great. That still doesn't put it on, like, a level that compares to my favorite stories in other media. Yeah. It's nowhere near.
The best dialogue in a video game only amounts to an average HBO show.
It's exactly. Like, it's no Mass Effect. I mean, Mass Effect is kind of untouchable in that regard. But, and that, that sums it up. It's no Mass Effect. Or anything of that nature, so... Yeah,
Great rent. I'm selling it.
Right. That about sums up our thoughts on The Last of Us, I'd say. You have anything else you wanted to add to that? Your desire to play through it again or something?
I don't know. It's very bitter for me.
Right. I'm not really bitter because I guess I went in with low expectations from you guys playing. But
whereas we went in with very high expectations.
I didn't have high. Well, I never build up my expectations for stuff, and I didn't have to pay for it. And I played through it in 2 days. It wasn't like a huge time investment. It was just a fun little thing. But I'm never gonna probably think about it again after this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's forgettable to me.
So that's The Last of Us. I give it a plus probably. Either a plus or a plus. That really depends.
What's your highest?
Plus.
The plus pretty good.
Plus is pretty good. It might. I don't know. It'll fluctuate between.
Plus.
I do love the characters and stuff, and overall, like I said, I enjoyed myself despite the broken nature of it.
Yeah. Just wouldn't play it again.
Yeah, probably not. So yeah, that's it for the first episode of this new podcast series. I hope you'll come back next week where I'll probably talk about something.
Yay!